Most people believe freedom is something dramatic. They imagine chains, walls, guards, or force. But what if the most effective form of control doesn't look like a prison at all? What if it looks like normal life? Wake up, check the time, rush, work, spend, repeat. No one points a weapon at your head. No one orders you directly. And yet, millions wake up every day feeling tired, pressured, anxious, and strangely trapped without knowing why. This is the first illusion, the idea that freedom disappears only when it is taken. In reality, freedom often disappears when it is traded, quietly, willingly, and over time. Throughout history, philosophers have warned that the most dangerous systems are the ones people accept as natural. Plato described prisoners who mistake shadows for reality. Aldous Huxley warned of societies where people learn to love their servitude, not because they are forced, but because they are conditioned. Look closely at the world around you. No bars, no chains. Yet people feel exhausted before the day even begins. They feel behind before they start. They feel guilty for resting, anxious when they stop producing, and afraid of stepping outside the expected path. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. If this is freedom, why does it feel so heavy? The truth is not that people are controlled through violence. They are controlled through agreement. An unspoken agreement made very early in life. From childhood, we are taught what a good life looks like, what success means, what failure looks like, what is respectable, what is shameful, what is realistic, and what is impossible. By the time someone reaches adulthood, most of their beliefs about life are already installed, not chosen, installed. They learn to follow paths instead of questioning them, to compete instead of reflect, to measure themselves instead of understand themselves. This is not an accident. Modern systems don't need rebellion suppressed. They prevent rebellion by shaping identity itself. A person who questions too deeply is called unrealistic. A person who moves slowly is labeled lazy. A person who rejects the race is seen as irresponsible. So people adapt. They don't need guards. They become their own. They push themselves harder than anyone else ever could. They work longer hours. They sacrifice curiosity for security. They trade time for approval. And they pay for it. They pay with attention. They pay with energy. They pay with health. They pay with creativity. They pay with life. This is the first layer of silent enslavement, the illusion of choice. You are told you are free to choose, but only from options that already exist. You can choose a career, but not question why your worth is tied to productivity. You can choose a lifestyle, but not opt out of constant comparison. You can choose entertainment, but not escape distraction. From a young age, people are placed on tracks. Study, work, earn, consume, repeat. Few ever ask who designed this path and who does it truly serve. The philosopher Michel Foucault explained that modern power does not operate through force, but through normalization. People regulate themselves because they fear being excluded. Not imprisoned, excluded. And exclusion feels like death in a social world. So people conform. They dress similarly, think similarly, desire similar things, fear similar outcomes. And the most brilliant part? They pay for the system that limits them. They fund it through labor, through debt, through consumption, through time. Which leads to the second silent mechanism, identity through consumption. Instead of asking, who am I? People are taught to ask, what do I have? What you wear, what you own, what you display, what you post. These become substitutes for inner development. The market offers endless solutions to problems it created. Insecurity is monetized. Comparison is weaponized. Validation is sold back to you. People chase objects hoping to feel whole. Yet the emptiness never disappears because it is not a material problem. It is an existential one. A person disconnected from their inner world is easy to direct, easy to manipulate, easy to exhaust. They are always chasing something external: approval, status, success, never realizing the hunger was internal all along. Ask yourself honestly, how many of your desires are truly yours and how many were planted? When was the last time you chose something without fear of judgment, without pressure to keep up, without comparing yourself to others? Most people never stop long enough to ask these questions because stopping feels dangerous. Silence feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels wrong. So they stay busy. Busy minds don't rebel. Busy lives don't reflect. Busy people don't awaken. This is not because they are weak, but because the system rewards distraction and punishes awareness. And here is the uncomfortable realization: no one forces people to stay inside this structure. They remain because leaving requires responsibility. Responsibility for one's own thoughts, one's own values, one's own direction. And that responsibility is terrifying. So most choose comfort over truth, security over freedom, familiar suffering over unknown possibility. This is why the first chains are invisible. They are psychological. They live in beliefs like, this is just how life is. I have no choice. This is normal. It could be worse. But what if those beliefs are not facts, only inherited assumptions? What if the life most people live is not the only way, just the most common one? This is where the journey truly begins, because once someone sees the agreement, they can choose whether to keep it. And in the next session, we will move deeper into the economic structures, time control, and exhaustion mechanisms that quietly drain human potential. But for now, sit with this question. If freedom were not taken from you, but slowly exchanged, what did you trade it for? If this made you think in a way you're not used to, like the video. There is a belief so deeply embedded in modern life that almost no one questions it. That belief is this: your time is not truly yours. From an early age, people are trained to exchange hours of their life for survival. Not occasionally, not temporarily, but continuously. Most adults spend the majority of their waking existence working, commuting, preparing to work, recovering from work, or worrying about money related to work. And this is presented as normal. But pause for a moment and observe it from a distance. A human being, a conscious, creative, thinking organism, spending most of their life performing tasks they did not choose, at a pace they did not set, under expectations they did not design. If that were described in another context, it would sound alarming. Yet, when it is framed as a career, it becomes respectable. This is the second layer of silent enslavement, the control of time through economic pressure. Money itself is not the enemy. The issue is how money is positioned as the gatekeeper to dignity, security, and survival. People are told they are free, yet without money, freedom collapses instantly. Housing disappears, healthcare disappears, safety disappears, respect disappears. So people comply. Not because they are stupid, but because the cost of non-compliance feels unbearable. Debt strengthens this system. Many enter adulthood already owing years of their future labor. Student loans, credit cards, mortgages, interest stacked upon interest. Debt does something powerful to the human mind. It collapses the future into obligation. Dreams are delayed. Risks feel irresponsible. Curiosity is postponed. Passion becomes a luxury. A person in debt does not ask, "What kind of life do I want?" They ask, "How do I survive this month?" And survival thinking narrows consciousness. When someone is constantly worried about money, they have little space left to question the system that created that anxiety. They are too busy coping. This is not accidental. A population with no time to think is a population that rarely resists. Ancient philosophers understood this deeply. They believed freedom required leisure, not entertainment, but time for reflection. Today, even free time is colonized. Weekends are filled with errands, evenings dissolve into screens, moments of silence are avoided. Distraction becomes relief, but distraction also becomes dependency. Modern entertainment does not exist primarily to enlighten, it exists to occupy. Endless content, infinite scrolling, constant noise. Not because people are curious, but because silence has become unfamiliar. When the mind finally slows down, uncomfortable questions emerge. Is this really my life? Why do I feel empty even when I'm busy? Who would I be without all of this? So people stay distracted, and the system benefits. A distracted population consumes more, argues more, thinks less. The Roman Empire understood this strategy well. Bread and circus. Keep people fed. Keep them entertained. They will not notice the machinery of power. Today, the circus fits in your pocket. Another layer of control operates through social comparison. People are constantly measuring themselves against others, financially, physically, socially, digitally. This comparison keeps people running. Running to earn more, running to look better, running to appear successful. But comparison has no finish line. There will always be someone richer, more admired, more visible. So the chase never ends, and exhaustion becomes permanent. A tired person is easier to guide. An insecure person is easier to sell to. An anxious person is easier to control. This is not because society is evil, but because systems optimize for efficiency, not human fulfillment. People are rewarded for productivity, not wisdom. For speed, not depth. For output, not awareness. So awareness declines, and with it, inner freedom. But here is the quiet tragedy. Most people believe this exhaustion is their fault. They think they are failing. Not trying hard enough, not disciplined enough, not motivated enough. They internalize systemic pressure as personal inadequacy. And so they push harder. This is the brilliance of modern control. It doesn't need to punish you. You punish yourself. You wake up feeling behind. You rest feeling guilty. You slow down feeling afraid. And because everyone around you is doing the same thing, it feels normal. But normal does not mean healthy. Ask yourself, when was the last time you experienced real stillness? Not distraction, not numbness, but silence. When was the last time you had space to think without urgency? Most people cannot remember because the system does not reward stillness. It rewards motion. And yet, without stillness, a human being cannot hear themselves. They cannot separate inherited desires from authentic ones. They cannot see the invisible scripts running their life, which leads to the deepest truth we are approaching. External systems only work because internal ones cooperate. The economy controls time, but belief controls obedience. And in the final session, we will step fully inside the most powerful prison of all. Not the one built by money, not the one built by culture, but the one built inside the human mind. If you want to continue this journey deeper, subscribe to the quiet paradox. There is a final truth that most people never reach, not because it is hidden, but because it is uncomfortable. The deepest form of enslavement is not external, it is internal. No system can truly control a human being unless the mind cooperates. Governments rise and fall, economies shift, cultures change. But the human tendency to live unconsciously remains. From childhood, the mind absorbs beliefs long before it has the ability to question them. Ideas about success, about worth, about fear, about identity. These beliefs do not feel imposed, they feel natural, and that is precisely why they are powerful. A person may believe they are making choices, but most decisions are reactions to conditioning. Conditioning whispers, be realistic, don't stand out, play it safe. People like us don't do that. And the mind obeys, not because it is weak, but because it was trained to. The philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote that humanity is born free, yet everywhere lives in chains. Those chains are not always visible. They exist as fears that never belong to us, as desires that were implanted, as limits that were inherited. By adulthood, most people no longer need authority figures to control them. They have internalized authority. They police their own thoughts, silence their own intuition, doubt their own impulses. They avoid change, not because it is impossible, but because it threatens identity. Identity is one of the strongest cages of all. People cling to labels: nationality, profession, belief system, social role. These labels create belonging, but they also create blindness. Once someone identifies strongly with a group, they outsource thinking to it. This is what we believe. This is how people like us behave. Independent thought feels dangerous. Deviation feels like betrayal, so people defend ideas they never examined, fight for narratives they did not choose, and fear perspectives that challenge their worldview. The mind becomes tribal, and tribal minds are predictable. This is why emotional manipulation is so effective. When people are triggered, they stop observing. They react. Fear, anger, pride, shame. These emotions bypass reason. A person in reaction is not free. They are programmable. Carl Jung warned that until the unconscious is made conscious, it will direct life and be called fate. Most people believe life just happens to them. They do not see the invisible patterns guiding their choices, the repeated relationships, the repeated struggles, the repeated fears. They blame luck, circumstance, others, rarely the mind itself. And so the deepest prison remains intact, because a person who does not understand their inner world cannot escape it. Here's the uncomfortable realization: no external freedom can save someone who is internally enslaved. A person can live in a free country and remain psychologically imprisoned. A person can have money and still be controlled by fear. A person can have choices and still feel trapped, because the lock is internal. But this is also where hope begins. Awareness is the master key. The moment a person starts observing their thoughts instead of obeying them, something shifts. The moment they question beliefs instead of defending them, cracks appear. The moment they realize that many of their fears were learned, not born, power returns. This is why self-knowledge has always been dangerous to systems of control. A person who understands their mind cannot be easily manipulated. A person who sees through identity traps cannot be divided. A person who has inner clarity cannot be ruled by fear. They may still participate in society, but they are no longer owned by it. They work without worshipping work, consume without defining themselves by it, engage without losing themselves. They stop reacting and start choosing. This is not rebellion in the loud sense. It is rebellion through awareness, quiet, internal, irreversible. The philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti once said, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." Many things we call normal are symptoms, not truths. Chronic stress, constant comparison, emotional numbness, endless distraction. These are not natural states of being. They are signs of disconnection. But disconnection can be healed, not through more achievement, not through more consumption, not through more noise, but through consciousness, through slowing down enough to see, through questioning enough to break patterns, through courage enough to live without borrowed beliefs. Freedom is not something given by systems. It is something realized internally. When a person becomes conscious, the prison dissolves, the bars weaken, the scripts lose power. They no longer ask, "What am I allowed to be?" They ask, "Who am I really?" And from that question, everything changes. This is the truth kept from the distracted, the exhausted, and the fearful. The world does not need to enslave awake minds, only sleeping ones. So the real question is not whether humanity is controlled. The question is, are you still asleep? Or are you ready to wake up? If this resonated with you, comment what part made you stop and think.